everyone, welcome back to day 1 of art camp. I hope you all had a good break, but I'm ready to get back to some art. In your guidebook, you can see the next project for today is an apple pinch pot. So here is my sample. You can see it's like a little clay pot, it looks like an apple. And then when you open it up, there are seeds and a little worm inside. This project is divided into 2 parts because we're making it with air-dry clay, and the clay will take about 2 to 3 days to dry. So we're going to start with that part. The materials that you'll need are your bag of clay, and from your folder of papers you will need the piece of wax paper. It's this one that's kind of see-through and has the serrated edge. From home, you will also need a cup of water and some paper towels. Lay out your wax paper to cover your work surface. Get out your clay. I wrapped it in saran wrap just to make sure each piece wouldn't fall out, so you're going to have to take that off too. Our first step is going to be dividing this ball of clay in half. You want one half to be a little bit bigger than the other half though. So these are my 2 pieces. You're going to set this one aside. We're going to use it later. Wrap it back up in your saran wrap. Then we're going to take this one and make it into a really smooth ball. Put the clay in between the palms of your hands and move them in circular motions. Once you have a ball that you like, put it on your wax paper. And now this is the part where we're going to make the actual pinch pot. So it's called a pinch pot because you pinch around the outsides to create like the bowl shape. So we're going to take our thumbs and press it into the middle of the ball. Don't go all the way through, just into like the very, very center. You should have this, look like a donut, but doesn't go all the way through. Okay. Then you're going to take your pointer finger and your thumb, and you're going to put your thumb back in the hole, and you're just going to pinch all the way around. You can use your other fingers too to help. Actually, I'm using both hands. Whatever works best for you is what you should do. Okay. So then you just want to keep molding it until the walls become thinner. But you always want to make sure that there's a base. So once the walls are about how thick you want them to be, take your pot, put it down on the wax paper, and then kind of press down the center onto the table, so that you can get the bottom nice and flat so that it will sit on the table. And then you can see that mine's a little bit wonky, like this side's definitely shorter than this side. So I'm just gonna go through and kind of tweak things until it looks how I want to. Remember, this is homemade, so it's not supposed to look perfect. You can see on this one, I didn't get completely round edges or anything, but I still really like the way that it looks. You can tell that we used our hands to make this, and to me that makes it more special. If the top becomes too big, where you feel like the top is falling open, you can take, like here it's a little thin and I feel like it's falling open. So I'm going to take these 2 sides, fold them in on each other a little bit, and then just pinch that excess out flat. And so that actually will form a bunch of creases. But that's okay because we're going to use our water to smooth them out. And if your clay gets too warm, it's not going to want to hold its shape. So make sure you're not pinching it too much to the point where it's like melting. All right, I think this is about where I want it. So then I'm going to dip my fingers in my water. You don't want too much, you just want them to be a little damp. And then I'm going to just smooth out the outside creases with my thumb. You won't be able to get them all the way smooth, but you can at least try to make them look a little bit nicer. You also want to be careful not to use too much water because that will make your clay start falling apart. Then I'm going to take some more water and go in on the inside and just smooth out all the pieces that I want to. Again, I'm not making this perfectly smooth whatsoever. Just making it look a little bit nicer. So once you get your pinch pot the way you want it to look, you're just gonna leave it here and make sure not to touch it. We can kind of tweak some things in a little bit once the clay has set up a little more, but you kind of need to reach a point where you just stop touching it. And then we can start working on our lid. So you're gonna take your remaining clay and divide it in half again, but make one half a little bit bigger than the other one. So there are my two balls. Set this small one aside. Then you're gonna take this large one and make it into a smooth ball again, just like we did when we started with this. So I'm rolling it in between my palms until it's pretty smooth. And then you're gonna set it on the corner of your paper. And then with your palm, when it's super flat, you're just gonna squish it. So we want this to be kind of like a flat circle to go on the top. So I squished it on one side, I'm gonna flip it over, squish it on the other. And I said we're trying to make a circle, but it doesn't need to be a perfect circle by any means. So once you have it in a pretty flat disc, hold it over the top of your pinch pot to kind of make sure that it will cover all the edges and sit nicely on top, like the way that this one does. So I am just pinching it to stretch it out a little bit, then lightly setting it on top just to make sure it fits, and then I'll set that to the side. And you can smooth this one out if you want to. I might just do a little bit, but it shouldn't need a ton. Next, you're going to take the last leftover ball of clay, and we're going to be using this for the stem, the leaf, and the little worm. And we might not actually use all of this, so I am just going to take about this much little ball, and I'm going to form a leaf shape with it. Actually, I took too much, so I'm going to pinch some off. And the way that I'm doing this is I kind of made like a rectangle, then I'm pinching the ends to make it look more like a leaf. And I actually think that leaves look more realistic when they are a little wonky. So I'm not going to work this too much. There, that's good to me. And I'm going to set this aside until it's time to attach it. Smooth it out a little bit. Okay, set that aside. Then I'm going to make my stem. So again, just a really small amount. I probably even took too much. And I rolled it in between my hands like this. You get the stem shape, but obviously this is too long. So you're gonna pinch off wherever you want it to stop. And actually, I kind of want mine to be a little chubbier. There we go. Oop. Okay, so this is what my stem looks like. I'm going to set it over here. Turn my wax paper so that we're at the lid. And I'm going to get a little bit of water on my finger. Rub it in the center. Getting clay wet not only smooths it out, but it also allows you to attach two pieces of clay together. So we're going to get a little more water and put it on the bottom of the stem. And then just put it in the center, kind of try to smooth out where the stem meets the lid. Once it feels like it's stuck down pretty well, just leave it. That's definitely the key with this, is knowing when to leave it alone. So you're going to get a little bit more water, put it right next to the stem. And then I made this little piece on the end of my leaf that is just going to mold into the rest of it, just so it has, it's kind of like a little bit of clay glue on the end. So I would recommend doing that with yours too. So I'm going to take this long piece, put it in here. And then I'm actually wrapping that piece like around the bottom of my stem. My leaf is now attached to my stem, and then I'm just going to kind of let it fall. So the point of it lands on the lid, but there's an open space between the leaf and the lid. That way we can paint in there later. So this is where I want it. So now it's time to move on to the little worm inside. So using the rest of this clay, you can really put whatever you want on the inside. I would recommend a worm because worms are sometimes found inside of apples, but you could also do like a bumblebee or a beetle or a ladybug or anything like that. So the way I make my worm, I take some clay. I think this might be a little too much, so I'm gonna take some off. Take my clay, roll it in my hands, kind of like how we did the stem, and then do I want my worm to be this thick? No. So I'm going to take a little bit more clay off, roll it back into the ball, restart. I think the thickness of this worm looks pretty good. So then I'm going to decide which end I want to be his head. I'm going to do this end. And I'm pushing it in a little bit just to make it less pointy. So then you're going to take the worm and fold his head up and then make a little bump in his body and then fold his little tail up. So this piece is going to be pretty fragile, and we're going to have to make sure that it dries okay because it has the potential to crack. So once you have it in a nice shape, make sure you just set it gently on the wax paper and leave it. With the extra clay, you can use it to make whatever you want. If you do make something with your clay though, make sure to send us all a picture because I want to see. Okay, so I'm just going to take some water on my fingers while everything is set up how I want it to dry and just smooth over those final touches. I'm actually going to go around the top of this to smooth out the rim of the pot. Once you have everything smoothed out, you're going to want to carefully take the wax paper and move this somewhere safe and dry. It's going to dry for 2 to 3 days, and then we will revisit it on day 4. So this concludes our very first day of art camp. I hope you guys had lots and lots of fun. I know that I did. I can't wait to see everything you guys are making. And if you guys have any questions, you can email me at cordovalibartcamp@gmail.com. Bye, I'll see you tomorrow.